We have a few questions here, Clint. One that I can combine, there's a couple that are actually around the services of Headspace, but also how parents can support their children. So I'd like to answer that if I can, but while I'm doing that, I'm going to pass these to you to also filter through, if that's okay. So I don't drop them.
What a great handball, Tracy. Well
done. So Headspace is a service for young people aged 12 to 25, and what we are really wanting people to know out in the community is that parents can also access Headspace as a standalone service to be able to support their children. So that's not widely known, and it's actually Headspace Day today, and there's a whole new campaign coming out that will, hopefully raise the profile of Headspace and what we can offer. But part of that will be about us getting out to let people know that if you are a parent or caregiver and you are concerned about your young person's mental health, that you can come to Headspace even if your young person doesn't want to come themselves. So, this raises some ideas around, the ethics of that. And I guess what I really want to communicate is that it doesn't have to be that you're forcing your young person to come at all. You are coming to get the help you need to be able to support your child. So that's a really great service. And yes, please know that you can do that either through an online referral, or you can also come to the centre. There's lots of ways to come to Headspace. And just around some other services that you were talking about before, Dorinda, sorry. We also have just launched a new parenting program called Partners in Parenting, and it has 2 specific modules on anxiety. So if you would like to be part of that, it is an online service that you can access from home or work, wherever. You just sign up to a Headspace account, and there are so many resources available on that account. One of them being this new parenting program. So I really encourage you to really be proactive in that space, to say, if I've got concerns, I don't need necessarily for my child to access the service. There is a lot you can do as a parent or caregiver from home to be able to really support your child in the setting where they are most often. So I think that's us at Headspace. If you've got questions about Headspace, please feel free to reach out to Jaden at the end of today, our Community Engagement Officer, or any of our clinicians. And we also have a table up the back with lots of resources for you to take as well.
I will make note as well, Trace, this will be a 3-pronged question that we'll be able to throw back to the panel as well, because there will be a little bit of overlap. If you do think of anything after the event and you do have a question to pose, for those that did put tickets through on their email, you will get a follow-up survey, one so we can assess if we're doing up here is useful for everyone in the room, but there will also be a box in there that will allow you to pose a question to anyone on the panel this evening, and we can forward that through to them. If you put your contact details there, and we can make it as a point of follow-up as well, just if you didn't feel particularly comfortable putting it up here. Now, my query, I'll throw this to you first, Trace, and then we'll roll on through, is what are the symptoms of a panic attack and what does it look like? How do I identify general anxiety in a friend or a colleague, and how can I support that person through it?
So I think that goes to sort of the types of anxiety and also the symptoms that you might see. And I think that, yes, we probably haven't touched on actual specific types of anxiety. So there are many. It starts very early, often with children. You will have separation anxiety. Then we have generalised anxiety. We have panic attacks. We have the symptoms that fall into the compulsive or obsessive type and intrusive thoughts kind of space. And so panic attacks have some very obvious signs, and the most pressing will be that you'll notice the person will often be holding hands to heart, because I think Beck will attest to this idea that your heart is racing so very fast that it does feel like it is going to beat out of your chest, and it may actually stop. So you'll often see that hand to heart kind of thing. You'll often see a draining of blood. Our bodies are really good at trying to send the resources to the places they'll need. So sometimes you'll just see a draining of blood. Sometimes there are some physical, I think people touched on the idea of diarrhea and things. That's the body's attempt to get rid of anything it doesn't have time to process, because we want to get through this. So you'll see some, hopefully you won't see that, but people might be experiencing that. And there's just this sense of gasping for breath. I can't get enough air in my lungs, and it feels so incredibly overwhelming. So panic attacks are probably the most visible sign of the anxiety cluster. More generally, I think people touched on a few of them. I think irritability is one that is really overlooked, so I'm really glad that you touched on that. I think we see that, to put a gender to it, we often see that in men, but we are also seeing that in young women as well, that there's this level of irritability, and some of that comes down to this idea that I'm so frustrated with these feelings, but I don't know what to do with that energy, and it just comes out in expressions of anger. And when it's directed towards others, the unfortunate consequence of that is that people will retract, and that really makes the help-seeking process really hard. So I think it's really helpful to think, if you're coming across someone who's really irritable a lot of the time, could this actually be anxiety, and what are some of the ways that you might be able to ask really sensitively, how are you going? I've noticed that you're different to how you normally are, and that can be a really good starting point just to support them.
Summary. Thank you, Trace.